There are now 20 heists and contracts in GTA Online. That's a lot. So today we're going to go through and rank every single one of them. Let's go. And starting off at number 20, dead last, unfortunately, it has to go to someone and it's going to the prison break. Now don't get me wrong, I actually really like the idea of this heist. Anytime you're breaking someone out of prison, it's going to be pretty cool, and that exact same thing is true here. This is a cool heist. But there are a lot of things that make it really annoying, which is why it's at the bottom. First, it only pays $875,000, which needs to be split between 4 people. Then you add on top of that this was one of the first heists ever added into GTA Online, which means that if any of the players disconnect or leave along the way, you do need to completely restart that mission. That really sucks and wastes a lot of time. Not to mention that this is a relatively tough finale. A lot of the time, you're going to be relying on a random person to not crash a helicopter or a jet, and a lot of the time, it doesn't end too well. If you do have a full squad though, this heist can definitely be a lot of fun, but for all of those reasons, plus the fact that the pay is not very good, unfortunately, it's going in last. At number 19, and not too far above the prison break, is going to be Series A funding. The saving grace for this heist is the fact that Trevor is in it, because just like the prison break, it's got most of those issues as well, but the pay is only very slightly better at $883,000. I actually think the prison break is a cooler heist than Series A funding, especially considering the finale for Series A funding just consists of you driving a couple of trucks across the map. But the reason I have this one a little bit higher is because I find that the random people that you often have to play with die a little bit less in Series A funding as opposed to prison break, so the heist normally goes a bit smoother. Honestly, prison break and Series A funding, neck and neck, they're both right at the bottom for me, unfortunately, so let's go on to number 18. We're kind of just loading all of the original heists at the bottom because at number 18 we have the Humane Labs raid. Now on hard mode, this is going to pay you $1.18 million, so the pay definitely bumps up from those previous 2 heists. One of the main things I like about the Humane Labs raid is that your role is completely different depending on what you choose to do for the finale. One team sits outside in a helicopter, which, look, to be honest, kind of a bit boring, while another team goes in and raids the Humane Labs. But still, the fact that you can play this finale 2 completely different ways is actually something I really enjoy. There's not really too much more I need to add here. It does still have a lot of the issues that the other 2 heists have. If someone disconnects, you're gonna have to restart that mission. That's just a massive pain. There's no 2 ways around it, but I do think this one is a bit better, along with the pay being better, so this one's going just above them. At number 17, we might get a little bit controversial here. I'm gonna go the Pacific Standard. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually really like this heist. This was the biggest heist in the entire game for years, and it does hold a little spot in my heart. I do love it. So let's talk about the good and the bad. The good, the heist is really cool. Breaking into the Pacific Standard Bank, actually going into a massive vault. Yeah, it's awesome. It's dope. You do this with a group of friends, you're gonna have a lot of fun. The downsides, though, are really just the same as the rest of them. Honestly, just the mission structure of these original heists stops them from going up any higher on the list. The payout for this one is $1.875 million, though, so this is the highest paying out of the original heists. And it's definitely not a horrible way to make money if you're a low-level player and you have a group to play with, but still not something I would recommend to absolutely everyone. Next on the list is the final original heist that we're going to talk about. It's the fleeca job. This one pays $250,000 on hard mode. Now you're probably thinking, TGG, why on earth is this above the other ones if it pays so little? Well, there's a couple reasons for it. One, you only need 2 players, so you don't need 4 players, which means, of course, you can get a bigger cut for yourself. Next, there's only 2 setup missions, so it's a very quick and easy heist. Like, seriously, most players will be able to do this in under half an hour. Number 3, the getaway in the finale is awesome, latching onto a massive magnetic cargo bomb. Come on, that's cool. And then number 4, I mean, it's the very first heist we ever did. This has got a sentimental spot in my heart. Should it be above the Pacific Standard? Maybe for some people. I am one of those people, so I'm putting it here. Next on the list, we have our first Doomsday Heist, and it's going to be Doomsday Act 1, the data breaches. On hard mode, this will pay you just over $1.2 million, which, yes, is lower than something like the Pacific Standard, but why is it above the Pacific Standard? Well, really the fact that it just takes 2 people. You can play with up to 4 people if you want, but you don't have to. You can just do it with 2, keep a bigger cut for yourself. Now, the actual heist itself is pretty cool. It's action-packed. One of the more notable sequences is when you fly a Deluxo and take out a massive plane. Rockstar really took GTA to a bit of a crazy place with the Doomsday Heist, gonna be honest, but it is a lot of fun. The downsides, though, there are some of them with this heist, mainly that the fact that this is a Doomsday Heist, which means not only do you have to do setup missions and a finale, but you also have to do prep missions before the setup missions. So this is a pretty beefy heist. It is going to take you a while, but at the end of the day, it is going to pay you more per hour than all of the other heists we've gone over so far. And speaking of a payday, we're going to have a big payday with this next heist. We're going over Doomsday Act 3. Yep, we're skipping Act 2, that's going to be a little higher on the list. Doomsday Act 3 comes in next on the list. On hard mode, this is going to get you $2.25 million. But the reason I couldn't put it any higher is just because this heist is so long. Don't get me wrong, it has its upsides, like you can do it with 2 people, which means you both get a pretty hefty cut of over $1 million most of the time. But for a lot of players, this is going to take close to 3 hours. Now, that time is going to be very action-packed. There's lots of cool parts to the Doomsday scenario, fighting invisible juggernauts, flying stealth helicopters, breaking into a massive underground bunker in the middle of Mount Chiliad. It is very cool. It's also probably the hardest heist or contract on this list, but if you like challenging content, maybe that's a good thing for you, who knows. For me though, I need to be in a specific mood to want to play the Doomsday scenario. A lot of the time I just want to get on GTA and chill, and jumping into a 2 or 3 hour grind with a finale that can take like half an hour to 1 hour depending on how good you are at it. It's definitely a big time investment. It can pay off. It's not horrible, but I can't put it near the top of the list. Next on the list is gonna be that Doomsday Act 2 that we were just talking about. It's the Bogdan problem. Now on hard mode, this is gonna pay you out $1.781 million, so only a little bit less than Act 3, but this is gonna take you way less time. This one is a much quicker heist than Act 3. So for most players, in terms of profit, you are gonna make more money per hour doing this one than Act 3. For pure fun factor though, all of these Doomsday heists are gonna give you bang for your buck. They are all very fun the first time through, and the Bogdan problem is no different. In the finale, you're gonna be breaking into an underground submarine with submersible cars. It's awesome, there's not much else to say. Again, you can do this heist as well with just 2 people, so both of you will get close to $1 million. The only thing keeping it from getting any higher on the list is that most of these remaining contracts and heists we're gonna go over are solo friendly, which does hurt all of the heists we've gone over so far. So let's get into the next ones. And in the next spot, I'm gonna put 7 different contracts. We're kind of lumping these ones together. These are the auto shop contracts. If I was gonna rank them from worst to best, I'd do it in this order. We've got the data contract, where yet again, for like the 1 millionth time in GTA Online history, we have to defend A.V. Schwartzman. Then we've got the super dollar deal, where we have to go up to the top of the map and break into an MOC. We have the agency deal, where we have to break into an IAA agency. Next, we've got the prison contract. Yep, we're breaking back into the prison. Then we've got the ECU job, where we have to break into the train. The lost contract, where we break into different motorcycle club labs across the map and blow them up. And then we've got the bank contract, where we have to go into 5 different banks and steal some money. All of these can be done completely solo, and for most players, you should be able to complete all of these in about or just under half an hour. The payout for the leader of these contracts is going to be just over $160,000, which does actually make them the lowest paying activity so far. But the fact that they can be done completely solo, so all of that profit is yours, and the fact that they should take you less than half an hour actually makes them the most efficient money-making method so far on the list. If you've never done these contracts, the mission structure is pretty straightforward. It's essentially a mini heist. You've got 2 setup missions and 1 finale. I honestly think these are probably a must-play activity for most GTA Online players. At least play them once. They are very fun. And there also is 1 more auto shop contract that we're gonna go over, but it's a bit higher on the list because this one is much better. So we'll get to that one soon, but next on the list is the new Cluckin farm raid. Now, when this first came out, a lot of people weren't impressed with the payout, myself included, but I and a lot of other people were wrong. This is actually a pretty good way to make money. The Cluckin farm raid is going to have you break into, well, the Cluckin farm at the top of the map for a police officer named Vincent. The payout for this one is gonna be $500,000. Again, it can be done completely solo, and maybe the most underrated part of this raid is the fact that you don't need any existing property to start this up. So in theory, a brand new player can just get the game and go and do this immediately. Now, if we're talking about experienced players though, this still is a pretty good way to make money. $500,000 for something that should really only take decent to good players about 50 minutes to 1 hour. Let's just say 45 minutes to 1 hour. It may not compare to the next 4 heists and contracts we're going to go over, but $500,000 in 1 hour, let's be honest, that is pretty good. The missions are also pretty fun for these ones as well, in my opinion, so I think this is a good heist or raid, so it's going at number 5. Moving on to number 4, we have the contract, the Dr. Dre contract, to be specific, and I think this is one of the most fun activities in all of GTA Online. To do it, you need to buy an agency, and the payout for this one is going to be $1 million flat. You're going to have 3 different sets of setup missions: the Nightlife Leak, the High Society Leak, and the South Central Leak. All of these are going to take you into different aspects of Los Santos, which I think is pretty cool. It actually provides a lot more mission variety than a lot of the other heists and contracts in the game. Now, in terms of payout and profit per hour, you're probably looking at just over $500,000, maybe $600,000 per hour. As I said, this is going to pay you $1 million, and it should take you just under 2 hours to complete. Maybe an hour and a half if you're a pretty good player. Now, this would be a lot quicker though if we didn't have to watch cutscenes every time we did it. In fact, this could probably be number 2 on the list if we didn't have to watch cutscenes. Come on, Rockstar, we've seen the Dr. Dre cutscene like a million times. The song is cool, but I don't want to have to sit through it every time. Please just let us skip the cutscenes. Moving on to number 3, we have the final auto shop contract that we spoke about before, and it's the Union Depository. This one, just like the rest of the auto shop contracts, has 2 setup missions and 1 finale, and should probably take you about 25 minutes. So what makes it different to the other ones? Well, those ones are going to pay you $160,000. This one is going to pay you $300,000 for about 25 minutes of work. Not to mention that this is the only auto shop contract where we really break into like a massive bank. Kind of makes it a bit cooler than the other ones, in my opinion. Now, no, the total payout isn't close to something like the Cluckin farm raid or the Dr. Dre contract, but if we're strictly talking about how much money you're gonna make compared to the amount of time you have to play, this one will make you more money per hour than something like the Dr. Dre contract. I mean, it's pretty close. These ones were neck and neck for me, but I'm pretty comfortable putting it at number 3 because number 1 and number 2, they kind of separate themselves from the rest. And at number 2, we have the Diamond Casino Heist. This heist is awesome. If you've never played it before, you definitely have to. Seriously, this is one of the must-play activities in all of GTA Online. So let's talk about the good and the bad with the Casino Heist. Starting off with the payout's pretty good. Depending on what you get in the vault, you can make just under $2 million total to over $3.6 million if you have diamonds in the vault, but that is a limited time item. The heist is also really fun. Breaking into a casino, awesome concept, and it works really well. The downsides though is that it's not a solo activity, which is the reason it isn't number 1. But I guess a positive is you don't need 4 players like the original heist. You can do this with just 2 players if you want to. The other upside is you can do all of the setups for this one in free roam. So you can use your futuristic vehicles like the Oppressor Mark II, your helicopters. You can just zoom across the map, get all of these setups done really quick. In terms of profit, it is a bit difficult to say. It really does depend on what's in the vault and how fast you are at the setups. But let's just say on average, if you're doing it with 2 people, you get, let's just say on average, $2 million from the vault. You could definitely get more. Let's just be conservative. Then you have to give a cut to Lester plus all of the people you hire in your heist. You're probably looking at what, $1.5 to $1.7 million most of the time, split between 2 people. It also is a much quicker activity than something like the Doomsday Heist. This one should really only take you an hour and a half. So in terms of profit, yeah, it's right there at the top. It's really good. And for that reason, it's going at number 2. Now, before we get to number 1, we do need to mention a type of robbery that wasn't included in this list, kind of deserves an honorable mention. It's the chop shop robberies. Now, there's 5 different robberies that are included here, all of which can be fun, some of which can be annoying, like the McToney robbery, but it's kind of hard to judge the payouts for these ones purely because it's so reliant on what vehicle you have to steal that week. If you came to this video specifically looking for a ranking for the chop shop robberies, it's pretty safe to say that most, if not all of them, belong around the same tier as the auto shop contracts. In fact, I would put them right on par with most of those auto shop contracts, of course not including Union Depository. If I had to rank these robberies, I would start off with the worst one being the McToney robbery, then the Duggan robbery, Gangbanger robbery, the cargo ship robbery, and the podium robbery would be number 1. All of these will get you anywhere between $250 to just over $400,000, and you can complete these in about 45 minutes. But moving to number 1 in the heist and contracts list, you knew it was coming. No matter how much Rockstar tries to nerf this thing, it still is probably just the best way to make money in the entire game. It's the Cayo Perico Heist. Now, this used to pay you out over $1.5 million solo every single time you did it. It got about a 30% pay decrease. I believe that was last year in 2023, but still, it's very good. Most of the time, you'll be making over $1 million solo every single run. And for most players who use the most effective strategy, this shouldn't even take you 1 hour. So for about 1 hour of gameplay, making over $1 million most of the time, yeah, that's awesome. It does have another pretty big downside though, and that's the cooldown. Doing this solo will get you about a 2.5 hour cooldown, so you can't just run it again. But that's kind of okay in my opinion. Like, if you only log on and do it once a day, that's still $1 million every day you play just for 1 hour, and it by far and away still puts it at number 1 on this list in terms of profit. So for that reason, it belongs at number 1. And we'll wrap the video up there. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up if it helped you out, subscribe for more stuff like this, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Boys!
Favorite color, money green. Paper. I've been on my grind since I was in the 7th grade. Had my first kid, I was only 17. Always a provider for my pack like Wolverines. But you won't find me on the mountaintop. Need